Welcome to 9 News at Noon. I'm Matt Venezia. Louisiana native Jimmy Swaggart right here became one of the world's best-known televangelists. Passed away this morning at the age of 90.
Today we're going to get into the really intricate life and legacy of U.S. televangelist Jimmy Swaggart. He passed away recently at 90, which gives us a chance to look back at, well, a pretty complex figure. He didn't just build a global media empire. He saw it reach incredible heights and then get dramatically hit by personal scandal. The sources we have paint a really fascinating, sometimes contradictory picture that we want to unpack for you.
Absolutely. And our mission here really is to dig a bit deeper than just the headlines. We're looking at these news reports, these biographical bits, to really understand, the arc of his influence, how huge it was, and also the controversies, the specific things that marked his career. And maybe the most surprising part, how he sort of stuck around in televangelism even after these major, major setbacks. We want to get at what made his story so, impactful and, often pretty contradictory.
Okay, so to really get a sense of that impact, we should probably start at the beginning, right? His early days, he started broadcasting sermons way back in the 1960s.
That's right, the 60s. He was definitely an early mover, a real pioneer in what became televangelism.
And he had this self-description, didn't he? Something like an old-fashioned, Holy Ghost-filled, shouting, weeping kind of preacher.
Exactly.
Yep.
Soul-winning, gospel-preaching preacher. That's how he put it. It's quite a vivid image he painted of himself.
It really is.
Yeah.
And does that line up with how people saw him generally? Or was there always a bit of a, tension there?
Well, what's interesting is how incredibly big his ministry got, especially by the 80s. I mean, truly massive. At his peak, you're talking millions of viewers, over 100 countries.
Yeah.
And the money, reports say around $140 million a year coming in.
Incredible.
And it wasn't just the TV shows. His media empire was, diverse. He had gospel albums that sold really well. Lots of branded merchandise, too.
Like what kind of stuff?
Oh, Bible study manuals, things like that. Even apparently replicas of Jesus's crown of thorns.
Huh. And his actual services, I heard they were pretty intense.
Oh, yeah. At the Family Worship Center in Baton Rouge, huge place, like 7,000 seats, people would be weeping, speaking in tongues. Very characteristic of the American Pentecostal faith he practiced. Very emotional, very fervent.
Right, and a big part of his message, as I understand it, was this constant struggle, good versus evil. He preached a lot about the temptations of the flesh, very passionately about it.
Absolutely. That was central. He projected this image of absolute moral strength, railing against vice.
Which, of course, sets the stage for what came next. That strong stance makes the fall seem even, bigger.
Precisely. It created a very specific expectation for his own life.
So let's get to that. 1988, he's at the absolute height of his power, his influence, and then the facade cracks.
Yeah.
It's photographed in New Orleans with a sex worker. Huge turning point.
Yeah, huge. Right. The fallout was immediate, just immense. And his response on TV, that became, legendary in its own way. He gave this incredibly tearful public confession.
I think I remember seeing clips of that. What did he actually say?
He looked right at the camera, addressing everyone, and said, to the hundreds of millions that I have stood before, I have sinned against you, and I beg you to forgive me. And then, I have sinned against you, my Lord. It was powerful stuff, very public, very vulnerable.
But also maybe a bit theatrical?
Well, yeah, you could certainly see it as a kind of spiritual theater, definitely.
And the context here is pretty important too, isn't it? Because he hadn't exactly been quiet about other preachers' failings.
No, not at all. He'd been highly critical, even condemnatory, when other big names got caught in similar scandals.
Right, and he'd also made some pretty controversial statements about other faiths, calling Catholicism and Judaism illegitimate.
Yes, he had. So that background, his previous judgments on others, his comments on other religions, it definitely amplified the reaction when his own scandal broke.
The hypocrisy angle must have been huge.
It was glaring, yeah. People remembered what he'd said before. Forgiveness was asked for, but, those earlier condemnations didn't just disappear.
Okay, so that was 88. But then, just 3 years later, 1991, it happens again. Caught with another sex worker, this time out in California.
Right. And this time, his reaction was noticeably different. A real contrast to that tearful plea from '88.
How so?
Well, reports say he was just less apologetic. Much less. In fact, he made that now infamous statement on a broadcast. He said, the Lord told me it's flat, none of your business.
Wow.
None of your business. That's quite a shift. From begging for forgiveness to defiance.
It really is a remarkable shift. It makes you wonder, what was going on there? Was he just done with the public scrutiny? Maybe a different view of accountability by then?
Or maybe just pushed too far. It's hard to say.
Hard to say for sure, but that defiance is definitely part of the story.
So what were the actual, practical consequences of all this? For his ministry, his standing?
Oh, they were severe, very real consequences. He got kicked out, essentially cast out of the Assemblies of God.
No.
That's the ultra-conservative denomination he belonged to. A huge blow.
Oh, right. That's significant within that world. Definitely. And then some religious TV networks just dropped his programs. His reach shrank. The ministry itself, which had been, a major employer down in Louisiana, it got much smaller.
And there were money troubles too, weren't there? Beyond just losing viewers.
Yeah, legal troubles popped up around tax payments, things like that. That drained resources too. It was a definite, significant decline.
But despite all that being kicked out of his denomination, losing networks, the scandals, the tax issues, he kept going.
That's the really striking part, isn't it? Even with a much smaller operation, yes, he kept preaching. He kept running his own broadcast network right up until he died.
That shows incredible persistence. Or maybe something else.
Well, yeah, persistence for sure. But it also suggests something about his connection with his remaining followers, right? It seems he managed to keep a core group who, either forgave him or maybe they saw his continued work as proof of God's grace overcoming human weakness.
So for them, the message still mattered. Maybe more than the messenger's issues.
It seems that way for that core group. It points to a kind of conviction, maybe on both sides, that could withstand that level of public disgrace. It's a unique kind of resilience, you could say, an unwavering commitment, despite everything.
So looking back at the whole sweep of his life, it's quite the arc, pioneering this global televangelism thing, reaching these amazing heights.
Then the public disgrace, not once but twice.
And yet somehow, continuing his work right to the end, age 90.
It really does make you think about that intersection of intense religious faith, the power of media, huge public influence, and just basic human flaws, human fallibility.
So here's maybe something for you, the listener, to think about. What is this story, the story of Jimmy Swaggart building an empire based on, spiritual purity, then facing these very public, repeated moral failures? What does it really tell us? Does it say something about public forgiveness? Or maybe about how powerful conviction can be, even when it sits right alongside these deep personal contradictions? Is it possible that for some people, the message, or maybe the perceived connection to the divine, can ultimately overshadow the messenger's own flaws? Something to ponder.